You're tuning into the Fearless Fridays with Maryann podcast. As a best-selling author, certified life coach, and speaker, I created this podcast to inspire, empower, and transform you from the inside out. From time to time, you may hear a solo episode, but for the most part, we will be joined by real-life guests who have overcome adversity. But as they have done the work, today they are thriving. So grab your pen and paper as we get started and learn firsthand tips and tricks to change the trajectory of your lives so we can live a free, fearless, and fabulous life. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Fearless Fridays with Maryann. I am your host, Maryann Rivera-Daners, and today we have an amazing co-author with us of one of books coming out. There's a couple. So without further ado, let's bring her on and get to know her. Hello, how are you?
Hello, I'm great. How are you?
Good, thank you. So let's get started. Tell us your name and a little bit about yourself.
Okay, my full name is Zanita Varnado Johns. You will find me as Zan Johns on social media. I am a poet and author. I call myself a truth-telling vessel of love, light, and grace.
I love that. And why do you call yourself that? What brought that on?
It comes from this agreement that I made many years ago with God about writing so that my light can shine. Allow others to see my light, allow others to see my good work. I believe that every word shared is an opportunity to love. And that's who I am. I can't be any other way.
I love that. I love that. So tell us about, I know that we met because we are collaborating on a book that's coming out soon, but not that book. Tell us a little bit about your other writings and what was the inspiration behind those writings?
Okay, thanks. Thanks for asking. I started writing in college and I didn't publish until 2020. I published my first book and I'm going to hold it up. I don't know if you can see it. The first book is Poetic Forecast. Now that one was a collection of select poems written over 45 years. So I when COVID hit and everything was quiet, I published this book to the Lord said, here's your chance. Go out, shine that light on the darkness. We need it. And so I selected certain poems for this book, published it. It became a #1 bestseller on Amazon. And after publishing that book, that was all I had planned to do. At the same time, I joined the Women Speakers Association, and I was in the Women in the Voices of the 21st Century book in 2021.
Okay.
Those two and that became an international #1 bestseller. The fire was lit. I discovered my passion and I engaged with the poetry community around the world. And it just sparked everything that had been, I continued to write poems, but I didn't share them. I wrote enough to publish a second poetry collection. It's hard to hold it up, right? This one is called After the Rainbow, Golden Poems. This one was published in 2022. And these poems were written it was more to process feelings. A lot of things happened in 2021, correct? Pandemic still in full force. We had natural disasters around the world. We had a lot of civil unrest in the US. So I wrote about things that agitated me. And of course, I always write about nature. I write to celebrate people. So that's what this collection is about. After the storms, I found gold in my writing. The next publication, these are personal publications, is my journal that I created last year, the What Matters Journal. And it's based on my Pushcart nominated poem, What Matters. This is a weekly guide for organization, self-care, gratitude, reflection. It's a wonderful journal. It has art, mindfulness art, that was contributed by two
Mm,
poets from the United Kingdom. That excites me
yeah,
about that book.
that's
And my
awesome.
last personal publication is Encore. And
Mm,
the name says it all. This is in response to applause and encouragement. People are saying, give us more, give us more. So I gave you more. This one's for you. Encore is my third poetry collection that was published in September of last year. So I participated in Voices of the 21st
yeah.
Century again. This is my fourth round. We'll talk about that.
Yes. So you talk about how you have always been writing, but you never published anything.
Yes.
What was it about? It could have been the pandemic that you got that little jolt, but
Yes.
was there hesitation? What was it that kept you from pursuing, having your works published?
My day job.
Mm,
I am a retired human resources leader. So I spent 29 years in well, not all of them were in human resources, but 29 years at the University of Colorado. I retired in 2007, worked a little longer until 2008. Thought I might publish a year. I took that first year after retirement to think about it. And then life got in the way
yeah.
in a good way. A lot of things happened. So I didn't even think about publishing. I was just
Mm,
busy living. And then when COVID hit, I prayed one night because it was so scary.
yeah.
And I said, God, please give me a poem. Tell me what we're dealing with.
Mm,
Let me know what's happening.
yeah.
And I woke up the next morning and wrote a poem titled Spiritual Reset. Wrote
Mm,
it just like the Lord gave me the words.
wow.
And it's a long poem. And I put it out on social media and it was well received. People started saying, it's time for you to publish. You need to publish. And
Yeah.
it felt like the right time. What else was I going to do at that point? We couldn't see family, couldn't go anywhere. And I took the time to pull out 45 years worth of expressions, to go through them, sort through them, and decide what to publish. And that's what happened. So
I love that. Did you always write in poetic, in a poetic way, or was it just writings that you turned into poetic
okay.
works?
I wrote the poems were always written in poetic way. I
Okay.
write free verse, I write rhyming scheme, I write whatever comes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they were only shared in small circles. Family, I shared one poem at work at an event once, which is the What Matters poem. But it was more personal for
Yeah.
me up until 2020. And
Mhm.
then I got really, really brave. And because once you publish, once you
Right.
put it out there, you're being vulnerable. But it was important to put something positive, to
Yeah.
put some light out there.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. So we are in a book coming out together.
Yeah.
Can you tell us your inspiration behind saying yes to that project?
Whew. To that project, because I had said yes 3 times before, this is my fourth time appearing in Voices of the 21st Century. First of all, the Women Speakers Association is an amazing organization,
Yeah.
which you have found, I'm sure.
Yes.
And the encouragement and support and resources that come from the sisterhood, this professional sisterhood, is amazing.
Yeah.
I was invited to join by my sister-in-law, Janet Sawyer, in 2020. She had participated in the Voices book. She's not in this year's book,
Mhm.
but I think she did 2 or 3 books. She said, you're getting ready to publish your book of poems.
Yeah.
You should think about joining WSA. You should use WSA Publishing, and you should join the Voices Project because they've never had a poet, she said.
Mm.
You can, and the first book really was about talking about poetry.
Yeah.
And as it turned out, my poem was selected as the dedication page
Mm-hmm.
in 2021, 2022, 2023, and now we launch a new book on February 6th,
Yeah.
Voices of the 21st Century, Women Empowered Through Passion and Purpose. The reason I said yes, especially to this one, is because I discovered my passion in 2020 and my purpose,
Yeah.
and I was ready to write this chapter. The title of my chapter is Touching the World Line by Line.
Mm.
And that's also my tagline. It's on my website. That's what I'm doing through poetic expression and creative expression. I'm touching the world
Yeah.
line by line.
I love that. I love that. So you spent 20 something, almost 30 years in human resources and various administrative,
Yes.
career.
Yeah.
And you said that, you found your purpose
Hmm.
through writing.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give, number one, to your 18-year-old self?
Yes.
And what advice would you give to someone who may be stuck in a career, whether they love it or they don't love it, but they feel like something is missing? What advice would you give?
I love that you asked that question because I think it was 2 years ago, my chapter in the Voices of the 21st Century book was titled Dear Zan, a letter to my younger self.
Oh, wow. I
Yeah,
did not know that.
yeah, because it's such a great question. That I noticed that a lot of podcasters and interviewers ask that question, which is awesome. What advice do you have for someone who is just
Yeah.
starting out? And what I say, because I hope that it doesn't take people as long as it took me to
Mm.
find their passion. Listen to that inner voice. Pay attention to what sets your heart, what makes your heart sing.
Mm.
Follow that. I had clues. I
Right.
had clues. In ninth grade, I did a project about poetry where I researched poets and, remember when you used to get the folders and, decorate the cover.
Yes.
And my title was Nothing Tops Poetry. That
Mm.
was my first clue. Now, I didn't write poems, but with my siblings, we used to rhyme and have fun, have a good time with words. Then I started writing after seeing the great Nikki Giovanni
Mm.
recite her poetry at the University of Colorado. It was the first time I had seen a poet who looked like
Mm.
me. This feisty young woman, she was in her late 20s, and unapologetically, when I heard her recite Ego Trippin', oh my goodness, it changed me. I went back and I started writing then. I started writing my poems. And what's funny is in 2020, when I pulled out my poems, some were still written,
Mm.
handwritten. I had never typed them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
So,
wow. And that's beautiful that you share that, because you found inspiration from a younger person. And
mhm.
sometimes it's the other way around.
Right, right, right. We have to pay attention though.
Yeah.
There's inspiration all around us. I say to younger people to read, to connect, to listen. That inner voice is powerful.
Yeah, that's so true. So aside from enjoying retirement life
Yeah.
and our book coming out, what else are you, looking forward to in 2024?
Whew, in 2024, I've got to watch what I pray for. Because I said I would love to have more collaborations with other artists. I've written with other poets, but I would absolutely love to connect with musicians,
Mm.
dancers, other visual artists. I've got a project underway with a photographer where I add expressions to their pictures. Actually, two photographers. Um, there's so much out there. There's just a lot. I'm working. I know that I will publish another book later in the fall. I'm always writing, so I'm always working on something. Yes.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So you are on the Fearless Fridays podcast.
Ah,
How are you living a fearless life?
whew. How am I living a fearless life? By doing what makes me happy.
Mm.
Poetry is my happy place. I am dreaming out loud,
Ooh, I love that.
dreaming out loud. And I learned that came from my sister-in-law who led me to the voices of the 21st century, published a workbook titled Mirroring Your Vision. It's a
Mm.
beautiful book, easy to follow, and she's got great inspiration in that workbook. And I did the work as I was publishing my first book. And my biggest takeaway from her book was to dream out loud. I had never done that before because, I was raised where if you're going to do something, you don't talk about it
Right.
until it's done,
Yeah.
right? And you don't share those
Yeah.
inner thoughts. But after doing Dr. Janet Sawyer's mirroring your vision exercise, I was brave enough to
Mhm.
dream out loud.
I love that.
Yeah.
As we get ready to wrap up, where can our audience and our listeners connect with you and learn more about you?
I am on Facebook as Zan Johns. I'm on Instagram as Arthur Zan Johns. You can find me on LinkedIn, Zanita Johns, and my website is www.zanjohns, as my name is spelled. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. www.zanexpressions.com. That's
I
where
love
you
that.
can find me.
I'll make sure to capture that on the show notes.
Thank you.
Are there any last parting words, something else that you would like to share that we have not talked about?
Sure. I'm gonna share that in the Voices of the 21st Century book, that the beautiful poem that was commissioned for this book, dedicated to my co-authors, is titled "Empowered Bells." I'm
Mm.
honored to be in this book with 45
Yeah.
amazing women, including yourself,
Thank
from
you.
around the world. We are empowered. We are brave enough to share our vulnerability, and we're going to change lives by sharing our stories.
I love that. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for listening to the Fearless Fridays with Maryann podcast. Make sure to stay connected with us, and you can find us on Facebook at MRD Empowerment Solutions or on Instagram as Maryann Rivera Dannert. You can also visit our website at MaryannRiveraDannert.com. As always, you are fearless, you are fabulous, you are a priority, and you matter.